and welcome here to TalkFCB, and welcome back to the channel, guys. And let me just first of all say a very, very happy new year to each and every one of you here. But unfortunately, because of Barca, it wasn't actually that much of a happy new year, was it? Because right on midnight, disaster struck. And I want to talk here today, and if there was ever a time to come, talk, rant, vent, whatever we want to do today, we're just going to do it. Because this situation, we have to find sense of. I mean, there's no sense to it, but we have to try and explain what is happening with Dani Olmo, what has happened, what is going to happen with him. But I think more than that, we've got to go deeper today. We have to have some serious conversation about Joan Laporta. We have to talk about the big questions that we have of him, the Barcelona board, the leadership at this club, and the direction. And that is all coming up today, guys. We have to have this conversation, so come on. And let's do it. Because, okay, guys, here is the situation as of right now. We've all known for day upon day upon day. In fact, we've known for months that Dani Olmo's registration in La Liga, and of course we're talking about Pau Victor, but Dani Olmo is the big money signing. He's the one where, of course, there's a lot more of the attention on, the big spotlight on Olmo's registration. We knew that was coming to an end at the end of the year. We knew that we would have to come up with the funds to register him again, and if we failed to do that by midnight last night, well, that was it. He could not play again in La Liga this season. And the reason for that, guys, just to explain here, because a lot of these details, honestly, they're very, very complicated. They would keep you up at night. They'd wake you up in a cold sweat. But basically what this all means is, because Olmo was already registered in La Liga, and of course, remember, he was only really registered because Christensen got that sort of long-term injury. He was ruled out for several months. So then we registered Olmo in his place. But then once Christensen was back, and when La Liga knew that he'd be returning, well, Olmo would need to be registered again, ready for the second half of the season. And the problem is, once midnight struck last night, and Barca hadn't done anything, they haven't achieved anything, and Olmo then effectively became deregistered. You know, he was registered for the first half of the season. At midnight, he became unregistered, and what it means in La Liga is that you cannot register a player again after they've already been unregistered. And that is the big problem that we have here right now, because indeed, Olmo is no longer registered in La Liga. Barca, they failed yesterday, and there's no other word of putting it here, guys. They absolutely, flat out, failed, because we waited all of the days building up to it. We then took it right up until the very last day, you know, December the 31st. We were all told it's going to be a long day, it's going to be a hard day, it's going to be a nervy day. We'd seen that so many times at Barca. We spoke about it on the channel yesterday, but still I think all of us felt, okay, it is Barca. They do like to be a bit dramatic at times. They do leave things very, very late. But hey, in the end, they'll get it done. And yet the hours, you know, ticked on. The time went by. We went later and later into the day, and it never came. It was like midnight came, the new year came. I mean, of all the times for this to happen, New Year struck, and it was just empty. Nothing happened. It was like, where is the registration? And they failed. They completely and utterly failed. And already we're hearing rumours that, oh, Barca, they wanted an extension. They wanted there until January the 3rd to get all of this approved by La Liga, to send them the documents as they did yesterday. La Liga, we knew they wouldn't review them quickly. We knew they wouldn't just race through those documents there. But the problem was, Barca didn't have the money. Now, what they told La Liga was that they had agreed the sale, like we'd spoken about there, the VIP boxes in the new stadium, but they didn't actually have the money. They hadn't received the money. They'd only just agreed the deal, so they didn't have the money yet. They only had guarantees. And the problem was that Barca made two different agreements for those VIP boxes, two different companies, I expect, and they only had one guarantee. They were only able to give La Liga, to hand them yesterday, one of those guarantees. And La Liga, they of course weren't going to make it easy for us. They weren't really going to accept that. And Barca, for that reason, they wanted that extension until January the 3rd. But why wait until the last day? If you thought that maybe there was going to be a few complications, maybe not everything was going to be straightforward, you should know La Liga, you should understand the situation that we're in. Why would you wait until the final hours to send over those documents? I mean, I do not know what Barca were thinking. I do not understand here what the management were thinking waiting until the last day. And what we're hearing now from La Liga, from the RFEF, the Spanish Federation too, that the rules are clear. We're not going to hand out here extensions because you're Barca. We're not going to give you here more and more days to get this deal done. You knew the deadline. You knew that every other club had to adhere to these rules. It had to be done by December the 31st at midnight, and you didn't do it. And that, for me, looking at the club, looking at the leadership here, that is absolutely unforgivable. But okay, guys, before we go on to talk specifically about Laporta, about the board, about some of these decisions, which we need to do, I've got a lot more to say on that. But hey, first of all, what on earth is going to happen now with Dani Olmo? You know, what is going to happen to him? He is no longer registered in La Liga. Unless an absolute miracle happens, he won't be for the rest of the season. So he cannot play any La Liga football. Now, right now, as of this moment, we believe that he can still play in the Champions League. We believe that he can still play in the Super Cup, maybe Copa del Rey games. There's not absolute clarity on that, but it seems to be the case here. The only problem that we have, and it's a big one, is that he cannot play any La Liga games until at least the end of the season. But of course, a lot of people are saying, well, I thought at midnight he was automatically going to be a free agent, that he was gone, that he would then join another club for free. But the thing with that is he has the option to do it. You know, when he signed for Barca, of course, there were so many complications. He knew about our financial situation. He probably knew about the way the club was being run. And for that reason, just out of maybe the will of wanting some protection, he probably got a clause in his contract that said, if at any point you can't register me, whether it be in the summer when I signed, or in January, or beyond, then I have the option to just leave the club and join another one. So he has that clause in his deal. But ultimately, it's down to him. You know, just because he's not registered now in La Liga, it doesn't mean he's a free agent. It doesn't mean he suddenly has to go and it has to happen. It depends on his own personal decision. And from what we're hearing right now, Dani Olmo, he still wants to be at Barca. You know, even despite all of this, it's his dream to play here. He wants to be a Barcelona player, and he is absolutely only thinking of staying at the club. Because remember, he is still under contract here until 2030. Because that's the other staggering thing. Apparently, if he was to leave, if he was to exercise that option in his deal, Barca would still have to pay his wages. They would still have to pay up that deal until 2030 here. That is the kind of risk that we have taken on at this club. So Olmo right now, he doesn't want to leave. He doesn't want to exercise that option to become a free agent. But I mean, hey, that's right now. That is here and now. I think he's still sort of waiting right now for all of the dust to settle, because the problem is there was people already trying to maybe make a bit of light of this situation, try and find some positives and say, well, even if he can't play in La Liga, it's okay. He can play Champions League games. He can play cup games there. But again, what we're hearing in the media right now, guys, is this La Liga registration, it has a real knock-on effect, because apparently in the Champions League, in order to play in that competition, you need to be registered in a domestic league. Now again, Olmo is not. Olmo is now not registered in La Liga. He cannot play domestically, so it's very, very possible here, and it's expected he cannot play Champions League football either. So effectively here, if he was going to stay at Barca, we are asking him to sit around, to wait, to do effectively nothing, and on full wages though, for 6 months and more. It's an embarrassing situation. No player at Barca should be put in this situation, should be put in this absolute mess. But that is where he is right now. That is the situation that he's dealing with. And that is why there's even been rumours of, okay, you can't play in La Liga, you can't play there maybe for 6 months. So could he even go out on loan if he wasn't to exercise that option to become a free agent, which we don't believe that he will. And I guess that's pretty good on Dani Olmo's part. He wants to be here. He wants to succeed here. He's willing not to go down that route. So could he therefore go out and play for several months at another club? But even that, guys, we're talking about our big money signing. We're talking about our massive, massive acquisition, leaving on loan just a few months after signing him. And because this situation is so unprecedented, because these kinds of things, they don't happen in football. This doesn't happen to players. It doesn't happen to clubs. This kind of thing hasn't been seen before. We still don't really know what's going to happen next. This is such a bad situation. But here's the thing, guys, and the big question for me is not only how, but why. Why on earth has this happened at Barca? What has led to this happening? Because I think serious questions, they've got to be asked here of Joan Laporta. And by the way, this is not just from now. Many of us Barcelona fans here, going back month upon month, even back in the summer, we started to talk about the fact of, okay, this is not acceptable anymore from Joan Laporta and his board, even when we were going through the signing of Dani Olmo there, even when it was the sacking of Xavi Hernandez and the way that that was done, the big questions, they started to come. Because we know, and let me just add this disclaimer here, we know what Joan Laporta inherited from Bartomeu. And by no means here are we forgetting that. Bartomeu was a disaster for this club, well and truly. He very nearly single-handedly destroyed this club from the inside. He nearly bankrupted us. That should never, ever be forgotten. I am not suggesting that. But the problem is, and the problems now that I'm seeing with Laporta, after he came in, after he really worked on the finances, after we put more trust in those coming from within Barca, and at the start of his tenure, we were a lot more careful with money. We were not going out and spending massive sums. We were very clever in the free agency market. We were looking for loan deals, things like that here, to just get us back up there and to get us cooking again. But the problem now, and over these past few months, the past few seasons, we have started again to live beyond our means. Because even the signing here of Dani Olmo, we took on a massive money operation, and for what? To then think about it after the fact. We signed him, we gave him all that money, all that long-term deal, and then later we thought, oh, how are we going to register him? How are we going to keep him in this squad for the new coach? It's an afterthought. And honestly, guys, how can that happen? How can you be leading a club like Barcelona, talking about a transfer fee there of 60 million euros, you know, all in with all of those wages and beyond? How can you then think later about how you're actually going to play him? This is not acceptable. You cannot run a club like this. And what we continue to see with Laporta's board is we sign away our future income in return for the present. Now, let me just remind you guys that when Lionel Messi was forced away from this club, when Joan Laporta made that absolutely massive call, and it was his call, his reasoning for that was, I am not signing La Liga's CVC deal, which would have allowed the registration of Messi. I am not signing that CVC deal because I do not want to sign away future income for the now, because no player is bigger than the club. Well, what have we been doing then? Because we continue to see this club stripped of assets. We continue to see Barca selling up future income. And for what? Because even what we've done now with Olmo, the guy cannot play. So we haven't just spent and wasted money. We're not even able now to use him. This has gone a step even further than before. Because can I just talk to you here about the VIP boxes? Can I talk to you about this sale from Joan Laporta that was well and truly rushed through, that was absolutely pushed through there at the very final minute? We have sold 20 years of VIP boxes, and I don't think that it's all of them, but it's a very decent amount there. In the new stadium, 20 years of VIP boxes for 100 million euros there to companies in Dubai. Now, according to the media, before, Barca were thinking of getting 200 million for those same boxes. So what we have done here is that even in a stadium where we haven't even moved in yet, it's not even ready yet, we have torn away VIP boxes, 20 years of them, and for half the price that they should have been. We are not only just selling now future assets, we are stripping them away at a cut price because of desperation. Because the companies in Dubai, they knew, they could look at Laporta and know the situation. We were absolutely desperate. We're looking around, we're running around, we're thinking, how can we get this money? We need this money. We've already spent this money. Why? Why would you put yourself in this situation? Because remember, the entire point of moving to a new stadium, what was the reasoning? Why have we been playing at the Olympic Stadium? Why is there so many concerns right now about where we're going to play our football? The whole point of moving to a new stadium, why? So that we had higher revenue, so that we could bring in brand new revenue streams, lots of money coming into the club, big revenue, and yet here we are in this situation. We are already stripping an asset from that new stadium at half the price of what it is worth. And the reason that we're in this mess is decision making. It is feeling as though we've got to sign players, we've got to go out and make a big money signing, because let me be honest here, as good as Olmo has been, and he has been very, very good, Barcelona fans all said he's had a great impact at the club. But back in the summer, we were not complaining about the player that he was. We were not complaining that he wasn't a good player. We were all screaming about this signing, saying, is it necessary? Do we need to go out and spend that amount of money on Olmo? None of us saw it. None of us understood it. And yet the board, they keep going through with these big money signings with money that we do not have yet. And then you look back, and this is where it's extraordinary, guys. Look back at Xavi and his words and why he was sacked from this club as the coach. Because he came out and said in a press conference, you know what? We can't actually compete that well right now. We can't really operate on the same level as the other clubs who can sign whoever they want. We are not at that same level. After those words, Xavi was sacked. And I always said this about the Xavi situation because I found it absolutely extraordinary that after a really bad season with really bad football, really bad results, it wasn't any of that Joan Laporta sacked Xavi over. In fact, in January, do not forget, he was begging Xavi. He was saying, please change your mind. Please stay at the club. Please, I want you here. Publicly, privately. He kept on talking about Xavi staying. And it only took that one quote about Barca not being able to sign, maybe a little bit of criticism there towards the board, and then he was sacked. And the entire treatment there of Xavi from the board, the way they did it, the way they conduct business, and it's not just with him. You look at all of the legends that have departed the club. You look at the way that people are treated inside of the club. I'm thinking as well about players that came on a free who really helped, really contributed. And then when we were kind of done with them, when we had a shiny new toy, they were thrown out. Aubameyang here came in, a wonderful impact that he had. 6 months later, goodbye. We've got Lewandowski now. We are moving on with big, big money signings. Even from Kessié in midfield there, having an impact, having a part to play again. When we're done with you, you can just move on. We don't really care where you end up. You are just a piece in our general puzzle. And let me just say as well, what on earth is Hansi Flick thinking right now? You know, the new coach of Barca. So we know what Xavi had to say. We know how Xavi felt about this entire situation. We know that he had to go through very, very difficult moments. And now it is ultimately Hansi Flick's turn. It is ultimately Flick's turn here. And Xavi did say, look, the new coach is going to have it tough because it is hard inside of Barcelona and it is being made hard by the decision makers at the club. And it's for me about the spending. It's about the erratic spending. It's about the poor planning. It's about not understanding where we are as a club. Because the reason why Laporta and co will say that they're spending money, that they need to spend big, that they need to keep making signing upon signing upon signing to keep up this overall image of Barca, look at our squad right now. If we are a good team, if we have a squad here that is in a good position, the majority of the reasons behind that is nothing to do with signings. You look at the core of our squad, you look at where the biggest talent in our squad is, where have they come from? They've come from La Masia. We do not need to keep spending more and more and more money. That is why people will say, at times, we preferred it when we had no money. We preferred it at the start of Laporta's time, whereby we were trying to be clever. You had Mattia Almani there, who was constantly looking for deals, looking for ways around things there, to be clever and proactive in the market. Now, it almost feels as though in Laporta's head, and there's not too many people around him, I feel, who are telling him no. They're not telling him no. They're telling him to think about where we are. He thinks everything's fine now. He's happy to spend money to go on, to sign deal after deal after deal, to sign away our future revenue, to bring in players in the now. But this has gone too far. This has now come to a situation whereby the player that you sign for a massive amount, you can't get out of this one. You haven't been able to just squeeze your way through this situation and get out at the last minute and save face. This is a real problem. And now it is there for everybody to see. It is in plain sight. It is in broad daylight. Barca have embarrassed themselves on the world stage. And for that reason, Joan Laporta has to give answers. Joan Laporta must explain what on earth has happened here. And where do we go now? And how on earth can any of this be justified in any way, guys? We need answers. We expect answers. And quite frankly, after enduring the torment of this whole situation publicly, we deserve answers from those at the top. So please, guys, What are you feeling right now? Do let me know in the comments here. What did you think all through yesterday as the hours went by, as Barca just tried to do something and got nowhere? What did you feel as midnight struck and Olmo was gone? That was it. He wasn't going to be registered in La Liga anymore. Please let me know your feelings. How are you feeling? And what do you want to see happen from here, guys? Let me know that down below. I hope that you have, not enjoyed today's video, but I appreciate you being here. I really do, guys. So thank you for that. I will see all of you soon, because there will be more to talk about, and we will be not hiding from anything right here on the channel. Thank you, guys. I'll be back soon. But until next time, as always, Vejka, Hail Barca!